welcome to Cookie Pocket. This podcast is indeed absolutely about film.
Mm-hmm.
Today, we are Mitchell, Zach, and Christian. Tomorrow, we are Cookie Pocket gods. I don't know where that was going.
And tonight, we dine in hell.
and tonight, we dine in hell. Because we are discussing Hereditary. Everybody's favorite family fun adventure movie. Hereditary is a 2018 American psychological horror film written and directed by Ari Aster as his directorial debut. It stars Toni Collette as Annie, a miniatures artist, Gabriel Byrne as Steve, as Annie's hubby, Steve's hubby, Steve's hubby, I don't know, as a psychiatrist, Alex Wolff as Peter, the teen boyo, Millie Shapiro as Charlie, the younger teen boyo, and Ann Dowd as Joan, a support group member, and the member of something more sinister and less supportive than the support group. And the film really doesn't give you very much a synopsis. You kind of just have to roll with the punches. The family's kind of had a history of very bad things happening to people and suffering with close family members. And Annie's mom's a little bit sus, and she dies, and there's a lot of sus things that happen around it, and it's all about the imposter and who's among us. So, also there's a satanic cult. So what did you guys think of the film?
Well, would you like to go first, Christian?
No, sorry. I just think that was a cracking synopsis and intro for Mitchell, so I was enjoying it very much.
That is a good synopsis. Well, I'm going to say that Hereditary is great, and this is not at all an unpopular or unsurprising opinion coming from a horror fan, because the horror community loves this movie, including me. I think it's astonishing that this is Ari Aster's feature debut. This is such a detailed, well thought out script and production. There's so many little aspects of the cinematography and the staging and the production design and the casting that are setups for later scares or later plot points. And like you said, Mitchell, this is a movie that doesn't give you a whole lot. It does provide you with everything that you need to understand the movie, but it doesn't connect it all together for you, and you kind of have to be thinking as you watch it. And I think, especially for a debut director, that's a really bold move, because I think a lot of younger filmmakers are tempted to kind of connect things in their script and really kind of state what's happening so that the audience understands. A lesser director, I think, would have Annie on like a Skype call with like a professor in a Dark Side of the Moon t-shirt who said, "Now what you have here is a Satanist problem." Like, but that scene does not happen in this movie. This movie is very much just in the moment, and it keeps hitting you with legitimately distressing, not only horror stuff, but family trauma stuff as well. Like some of the best horror movies, like The Exorcist, which this got compared to a ton when it came out. The real horror here lies in really grounded, real-world stuff based in family trauma and death and grieving that a lot of people are going to have like a real connection to, regardless of the Satanist stuff. I mean, that's frightening as well, but it draws a lot of its scares from the real-world stuff, which I think is a mark of a really terrific and a lot of the time uncomfortable horror movie. I do think it's a mite overlong, but that might also just be because I've seen this like 4 or 5 times, so there are moments where it's kind of drawing out the tension where that doesn't necessarily work as much for me anymore because I know it's coming after those tense moments. But I do think it's a fantastic movie, and I like Ari Aster a lot as a director, and I'm really interested to see what he does next. He already made his second film, but I'm looking forward to his third and fourth films a lot. So 4 out of 5 for me. I really like Hereditary.
Nice.
It is obviously an amazing film. I gave it a 4 out of 5. I don't think anyone can really watch this movie and then go, yeah, it was mediocre. Like, I don't know how you could come away with that conclusion. There's some people on Letterboxd that were like, I saw a 2-star review where they're like, it's an exercise in style and that's it. And I'm like, really? All you got from this is some vain exercise in style? Really? I think that's absurd. I think there's, like Zach said, a ton of genuine horror, both in the scary moments and in this real family tragedy and trauma that just characterizes the entire film. I found I enjoyed the first half a lot more. I'm going to use words like enjoyed and liked, even though none of this movie is enjoyable or likable by design. But just for ease of language, I enjoyed the first half, I think, a lot more than the second half, because I thought it was a lot less predictable. And the second half, in my opinion, kind of becomes like more standard horror fare, which is fine because I think the moments are frightening enough on their own. And I just think like the conclusion is maybe like at some point kind of predictable. But I thought the first half was really kind of blew my mind. There were several moments. I was watching this alone in the dark in my basement, which I could not recommend less. It's terrible. Don't do it to yourself. Just
no,
don't.
That's how you should watch this movie.
No,
it's
save
so
yourself.
effective. No. That's how you're meant to watch a horror movie.
Okay, if you want to be scarred for life, take Zach's advice. If you want to be able to sleep at night, take mine. But I think big spoiler alert here for for anyone that hasn't seen the movie. Huge spoiler alert, and obviously for the rest of this episode. I was stunned when Charlie died, like 40 minutes into it. Totally did not see that coming at all.
Yeah.
And the hits just keep on coming from there. It's just like it's just crazy, man. And I think I audibly said, "Oh my God," to myself like 3 times in the first hour, particularly when the grandmother is like standing in the shadow, very early on in the movie. That might have been the most horrifying moment for me, oddly enough. I don't know why that spooked me so much. It wasn't really a traditional jump scare in that you're like surprised by it. But you observe it and you understand it's there, and then they like hang on it for 4 more seconds just to make you even more terrified of the reality of the thing being there. And it's just every ounce of style is used to make you feel as terrified as you could possibly feel. And it's just gosh, it's oh man. Season 1 me would not have liked this at all. But thankfully I was able to go to sleep at night because I think you two have just desensitized me to an extent where I can observe these without having my life ruined. So thank you for that, I guess. And I'd recommend this to anyone who can get through a horror film, for sure. Gosh, there's so much to say about how good this is. I gave it a 4 out of 5 just because of like some minor nitpicks with like the high school kid scenes and the way the film ends, but I think it's amazing. I think it's amazing that this is his first film, and probably the definition of a not for Nana film, but obviously terrifically well made.
I don't
depends
know.
on what it depends on. Yeah, it depends on what
Clockwork Orange
background
might be-
your.
It's
your
about
grandma
a
comes from.
dead satanic Nana, guys. That's the outset of this film.
Yeah.
Yeah, sure.
All right. Well, this movie and I have been through some stuff, you know. We've been having a lot of discussions about finances and the kids and where we're going to be living the next few years. But after I had like an extensive discussion about this with my roommates when we had watched it together, and we were just constantly talking about it for I think literally 2 hours.
Wow.
I was like coming to terms with how like substantive this is, because we weren't just harping on the same 3 things or 4 things. I mean, there was like constant things like over and over again, just kept talking about the same, like different aspects that we never even have thought of. And it's just like, there's so many red herrings and, you know, for like the subtlest of foreshadowing it's not barely out of frame. It's like right in your face, but you don't know how important it is until later. And stuff like that is just so hard to pull off so effectively. I mean, most people didn't even notice what, or even if it was even relevant, the leaf that was on Annie's lip when she drank the tea at Joan's house. And we don't even know what the meaning of that is. We could have been like, you know, it could have meant nothing. It could have meant like the tea was like a drug or something and made her psychologically worse. But as we know, she discussed during the meeting very effectively and very, realistically, of all of her past history with her brother, and her brother blaming their mom on him killing himself, and I think, or starving himself actually, and her mom having like DID and stuff like that. I don't remember which one. I think somebody had schizophrenia, but anyway, her entire. What was
I was just
Alan?
going to say, they think that her brother had schizophrenia.
Right.
But
yeah.
her brother killed himself and wrote a note saying that their mother was trying to put people inside him.
Exactly.
So clearly, Grandma tried to do the same thing with Annie's brother, and he killed himself before she could, which is just even more
Yeah. And even when they give it to you blatantly, like when she's reading the actual book with all of the, like, it literally says directly who King Payment is in it, and what he looks for a male host and things like that. I mean, like, that's such a simple concept, but it's expanded upon, like, in every way possible. Like, having those layers, like Zach had mentioned, of the family trauma and everything just makes it so much more intriguing and so much more believable, especially with the performances that we'll mention in a bit. But I gave this a 4.5 out of 5. I mean, like, the cinematography is insane. Like, literally almost every single frame has something to do with the dollhouse, or it's supposed to be framed in such a way where it looks like it's the miniatures. There's like subtle influence by the shapes of the floorboards and stuff like that. Like, the triangle represents the triangle of the family outside of Annie, and like the square represents the foundation of Steve and things like that. There are so many like so much subtlety in the cinematography, and the production went through a lot with the miniatures and everything. Not even to mention all the impactful and punchy psychological horror aspects. And I would agree with Christian that the only real problem I have is kind of the corner that Aster kind of put himself in at the end, where he kind of had to have people get killed and then have them get possessed in a certain way, and it kind of gets a little over exaggerated in certain spots. But for the most part, I think it's pretty in line with the rest of the film, and I really wouldn't change it, honestly. I mean, I'm so close to giving this a 5, but I mean, it's just a fantastic movie, and it's definitely a must for horror fans. But Ari Aster reportedly wanted to go for scares that were emotionally justified rather than solely leaning on jump scares, and took the suffering aspects very seriously, and wanted to show that very well. The setting of Utah was chosen for being as menacing as it is beautiful, and the production team went to great lengths to match the miniatures with the completely soundstage house, and because they had to remove the walls and ceiling to help get the shots for the to frame the shots correctly for the effectiveness of the miniatures. And then composer Colin Stetson made the score with sounds of water and animals while walking around in pitch black night. So how effective was the psychological horror for you? And does it come off as being more innovative, derivative, or both? And I left the both in there as a bone for you.
I did want to jump in here and say that as somebody who has actually like planned filming in Utah before, I know that it's menacing and beautiful, yes, but a good reason to film in Utah is also because it's cheap, because they don't film many movies there. But with that aside, I think that the psychological horror in this works beautifully. I made a comment about the score when I was writing this, that I think this is the perfect version of like a wallpaper horror score, because there are some moments in this that really, like, you can kind of remember like the horns and the chanting, but for the most part, this is a very kind of brooding, low, ambient score where just the unusualness of it really puts you on edge in different scenes. And a lot of what people might call jump scares in this, I think, are totally psychologically motivated, because the jump doesn't come from the loud wah that comes or in the score, or from a sudden movement on screen. A lot of the time, I think at the end, when Peter is walking around the house, a great example is there's a moment where he turns and the audience notices Annie is in the corner behind him, and that is the jump. Noticing that she's in the corner is the jump, and then the music goes boom, and she runs out of the corner. That's not what makes you jump, though. It's noticing that does, that psychological aspect. Other moments, I think, a great moment that takes place only a couple shots before that, when Peter's laying in his bed, and I didn't even pick up on this shot when I first watched the movie, but there's a shot where you see her crawling along the wall behind him, but before that, when he just wakes up, you can see her up in the shadow in the corner of his room.
You can see her, Zach.
Yeah.
And it just holds. And it's like the world's most prolonged jump scare that doesn't have a jump. And it's just that unbearing psychological tension of knowing that something's going to happen.
It's terrible.
But nothing happening, that just sets you totally on edge. It's like Hitchcock always said. It's always more tense and more suspenseful and more frightening when you know there's a bomb under the table, but the characters don't. And I think so many scenes in this movie make great use of that idea of the audience being aware of danger and the characters aren't, and you just want to grab the characters and go, get out! But like they don't have that awareness, and that's so frustrating in a really beautiful and effective way.
Mm-hmm. And their mentalities, they're like crappy, sense of what's going on, with the exception of Steve, and just being fully enveloped by all their problems and having like the hereditary family problems on top of the family problems on top of the the satanic crap is all like mixed together, and it adds to the effectiveness of the situational irony, because you literally are just like, they're just completely disconnected from the situation, and being as you're only connected with what you're seeing and hearing, and you're not really like having a full grasp of the story of what's going on either, because you're learning as much as they're learning, or as much as Annie's learning, and then eventually you're learning as much as whatever is happening by the end, because everybody's dead. So it's like, it's just, there's so many different things going for it, and there's so many different avenues of approach, that old army term I'm using again, to affect the viewer in different ways. So I think that's another contribution to saying it's a masterpiece. So
I'm literally like looking at all the corners in my room right now. Oh gosh, I can't believe you didn't notice that, Zach. That is like, first, okay, I'll confess that. I'll confess that at that point I had turned some lights on in the room because I couldn't take it. But still, I think when I saw that, I was like, holy, oh my god, we're gonna have to high school that. Oh,
I'm gonna have to high school that. Yeah.
But I don't think anything has freaked me out. Like, I think like the top 5 most frightening moments for me in movies are all in this movie, and I don't think it's that close. It's just, I don't have anything constructive to say about it. I just really want to harp on how terrified I am to our audience, I guess. But it's huge credit to Toni Collette, and in terms of like the family dynamic thing, I think Gabriel Byrne is really important. Shout out to our guy from The Usual Suspects, season 1. But I really love that scene towards the end where she's asking him to throw the book in the fire, and he's like, you need help. You are mentally not well, and you need help, and I can't do this anymore. Because that's like exactly how someone who does not have the evidence that she has probably should react to everything that's gone on in the house. So I to me that felt a lot more realistic than if the whole family was just willing to go along with her kind of crazy ramblings, and I think that makes his death way more impactful, and everything that follows feels much more earned because you get that moment with him.
Mm-hmm. I mean, this whole like universe, the cinematic universe, is like, it feels otherworldly, and like my dad had described Hannibal as feeling very otherworldly, because a lot of the scene transitions are very sped up whenever they go to a different setting, like the sky goes really fast or something, and that's usually like the main aspect of it. But it feels like a different dimension, even though it feels so grounded and all the themes feel so real, that it feels like this could totally happen. It's like all of it's like a setup. Like they mentioned Heracles in the classroom, and Heracles they're talking about was trapped in this this forced character where he had to be, he was like the part of a cog in a machine. Like he was just going to be another Olympian or aspiring Olympian or whatever. I don't remember about Hercules or everything, or Heracles and Hercules, but anyway, he was destined. He was destined by the gods to do certain things in life, and he didn't have any choice. Another classroom reference. And they talk about the Great Depression later on, funny enough, which is everything's going to crap, I guess is what that means. But yeah, I think the psychological horror is always there. I mean, even when there's literally nothing happening, the center framing and the staring of the actors, I think is a really big chunk of it. I feel like that they give off such a like disturbing and distressing and worried and angered look all the time, and even Steve's always got that worried look on his face. He's a total like realistic dad, like he's completely like the only normal thing happening at all, and that really helps as a control for everything else, because he just gets pushed out of the way. Why? Because he's not related, because the pain and thing's hereditary.
Oh.
So big brain.
Leo DiCaprio. Pointing at the screen.
Yeah. Look, this is when I come up. But Aster originally wrote the film to be a straight-up family drama, which you can kind of get hints of, dealing with grief and loss from the death of family members, but saw horror potential and rewrote the script accordingly. The story is partially grounded in evidence of a real-life satanic cult that worships the spirit named King Payman. Was the story confusing at all for you? Were there moments of subtlety or red herrings that stuck out to you anyway, good or bad? Like things that were like, wow, that's really subtle and I didn't realize that until later, kind of things.
Well, yes. And I don't think it really picks up every little thread and necessarily explains everything to the fullest extent, but at the same time, I think that's fine. It kind of loses me, and by loses me, I mean I lose track, at around the scene I mentioned earlier when the book is thrown in the fire and he burns up. Like, it's not totally clear to me. If he threw it, would she have burned up? If she throws it, why does he burn up?
Right.
What happens to her after he throws it in and he burns up? Why is she suddenly like fully evil or intent on like capturing her son, and spider crawling on the walls, and their dog is dead when he leaves the house, and now there's all these people in their treehouse, and it does kind of like spiral into craziness. But I feel like that's unexplained, but I also think it's earned. Like this feels like something that would bother season 1 Christian a lot.
Oh, wait,
but I don't. It doesn't bother me a ton. Like it's instead of being a 3-star, it's like the difference between a 4.5 star and a 4. Because I just think at this point the movie basically exists to horrify you, and like you said, Mitchell, there's a ton of red herrings and misdirection. So it would almost feel. I think it might even make less sense for the audience to be like totally in on every little detail, and it's fully possible that I'm missing the details too, and you guys picked up on them. But it's all in the presentation, and I think it does exactly what it wants to do and does so effectively and with justification.
Yep.
Yeah. When we talked about Roger Rabbit, we talked about films that reward repeated viewing, and I think this is definitely one of those, because I do think there are all the little details there for you to connect all of the dots, but you're not going to get them in one viewing.
Right.
There are all kinds of things that, I didn't notice upon my first viewing. And my first viewing was, like, immediately after it came out, when I wasn't kind of as into detailed film viewing, so I may not have paid it as much attention as it was due. But things like the symbol of Payman being on the electrical post that knocks Charlie's head off. Like, a lot of people miss that on their first viewing. A lot of the cult members that we later see when Peter's running around the house are dotted throughout the movie. One of them is one of his teachers. One of them is one of his friends that he's smoking with under the bleachers. There's kind of a wider shot of the outside of the house before the night scene where Peter wakes up and everything has gone to hell. And I believe you can see like the nude cult members dotted across the door.
That's a crazy shot.
Which it's so brief that a lot of the time people are like, oh, well, I'm looking at the house, since they don't see it because they kind of blend into the trees. But for me, that connects the dot of why is the dog dead? The dog's dead because they killed it. But I do think it's definitely a film that rewards repeated viewings. That being said, I think Ari Aster is a very detail-oriented filmmaker, but I do think he has the potential to become the next Kubrick to a certain negative regard. And I mean that not necessarily in the best way, because Kubrick was a genius, but he was a filmmaker that everybody became so obsessed with his genius that every single thing in his movies had to be deliberate. That scratch on the wall, that's deliberate. That lens flare, that's deliberate. And I've seen people get into that with movies like this, specifically Midsommar. Midsommar people get into more than Hereditary. But my response to that is sometimes the curtains are just blue. And yes, there's a ton of detail in this, and yes, there's a ton of detail in Midsommar. But I do think some of the things that people like to champion in these movies is like, oh, it's so genius. He's worked every single plot thread out. Even the grain of the wood has meaning. It's like, okay, sometimes a spade is just a spade and a cigar is just a cigar. But
right.
definitely.
Yeah, I definitely agree. I feel like when you're setting that standard for yourself, it gets a little weird. But this story is amazing. They're like, I, I I love when I can like look at stuff and I'm like, what does that mean? I'm gonna look this up if I don't understand it. And I looked it up and it's like, what? They thought of this? Satiny used in necromancy. Zazas, Ouija board demon, right? Liftoach pandemonium, Hebrew for open pandemonium, open pandemonium. It's telling you what act it is, the writing on the wall, and it's literally writing on the freaking wall. It's just like, and to your point, Christian, I totally understand, and to what Zach said is a great explanation. Repeated viewings and extensive discussion at the middle of the night with friends is the best possible way to understand what's going on. I feel like I said with the Hereditary thing, every single person is used as a vessel for the King Payman's influence. So when the big warp thing happens every time is generally when some sort of possession or control is being asserted. So Charlie, who was latched onto, according to Annie, very early on, was used as a temporary vessel to eventually get into the next male host, which would be Peter. But Annie always protected Peter from her. So she was, as we see the breastfeeding scene, the very disturbing shot of the miniature with the nipple out and with the baby, because that was Ellen preparing for her supposed husband, because she's wearing a bride's dress in the picture of her getting showered with coins, but getting Payman prepared for the male host. So they kind of skip around to the different people. They get Steve out of the way because he's not related. Annie is related, so she's used as the final vessel before eventually getting to Peter after he jumps out the window. So you would never understand that on your first viewing, maybe not even your second or third. But it just compliments to how intricate the story is. I already mentioned the leaf thing and the writing on the wall. Stuff like that just really sticks out to me. But I totally agree, Zach. I think if he gets a little bit too detail-oriented and starts to focus on the intricacies of every shot and tries to make everything as relevant as possible, that'll eventually be a detriment to his career. And I don't really think it's a detriment to the film necessarily.
Oh, no.
And Christian, you're definitely correct. There's some things like that leaf thing is a major one where it's kind of like you don't really know where it was supposed to go, or like the seance kind of stuff. You don't really know how much of that was true. We don't really know how much Joan explained. But to me, I feel like that kind of is lent credibility by the having the creative flexibility with all the demonic stuff, and really you can pretty much flex that in any way you want to. And he seems pretty reserved with how he explained it, and didn't really get into the intricacies of what everything means when it comes to that. So I think that's a wonderful way of doing it, and it's not very distracting to me. So overall, I think we all agree it's a pretty good story.
And I kind of want to jump in on what Zach said about overanalyzing stuff that's meant to be ambiguous.
Yeah.
I don't want to harp on this too much, but like fan theories will ruin a film for you more than your own criticism will. I at some point it's no longer germane to the enjoyment or even the appreciation of the art. So I would really strongly agree with Zach on that point.
Yeah, I mean, the particular example, I'm not necessarily even talking about like huge fan theories, but like
I think they're loosely related. Yeah.
I constantly mention this in our just friend group, but I'm in an A24 Facebook group, and people on that group are obsessed with Midsummer, and there's a particular shot in Midsummer where someone is raised into the air, and the camera follows them, and there's a slight, it's a single shot, Christian, and there's a slight sort of circle of light around their head, and it's the slightest thing, and it's literally just lens distortion from the kind of lens they're using. And there's so many people like, oh, that's meant to symbolize something with it. Sometimes lens distortion is just lens distortion. It's things like that really kind of bug me.
Is he done?
Christian can come back. He's done. Yes. He was talking about lens distortion.
Okay. I want to watch Midsummer later, but I don't want to know anything. So.
All right.
That was literally nothing about the plot. It was all about tech.
I
but
don't
all right.
care.
He's a purist.
I am
Leave
a
him
purist.
alone. But yeah, we can go on to talking about the performances now.
Yes.
Avoiding that. All right. So the actors are very often stay in character throughout their day-to-day lives while working on set, being referred to by their character names instead of acting names. I don't know how common that is, Zach, but it seemed pretty interesting. Gabriel Byrne and Alex Wolff had worked together previously. I think it was on some HBO show.
Yeah, they had. Yeah.
I don't know what it's called, but Alex and Millie actually knew each other from school. So it helped with Toni Collette's Annie's isolation from them in the film, of whom had high praise for Aster's directorial vision and loved the script so much that she just had to do another dark film because she just didn't want to do a comedy. She wanted to be dark again. So how are the performances, and how much did they contribute to convince you of the story and the horror aspects?
Oh, the performances are the best thing about this, in my opinion. In a film rife with like perfect direction and engrossing style, and where I'm often like not a style person, or well, sometimes I'll even find like a heavy style to be distracting. I think all that's handled perfectly here. I still think the best part is the performances because they're all just perfect in my opinion. I knew Alex Wolff from the Jumanji reboot.
I know. I know. Okay.
Where he just plays like
I knew that as well.
a stereotypical nerd, and he's like fine. But in this, it's not even comparable. But I was on Letterboxd and I realized I'd happened to see the first 5 movies under Toni Collette's acting credentials. Knives Out, Hereditary, Little Miss Sunshine, I'm Thinking of Ending Things, and The Sixth Sense, and she's just perfect in all of those. I'd recommend all of those to all of our listeners, especially the horror stuff though. Especially I'm Thinking of Ending Things. If you like this, you have to watch I'm Thinking of Ending Things. Oh my. But not to get too far off track.
I don't really know if that's a horror movie, but yeah.
And The Sixth Sense.
It's got elements. We're not going to get into it here though. Okay. I already talked about how much Gabriel Byrne was good. And Millie Shapiro, oh man, all she has to do is just like stand there. I think the best bits are when she's like at the party, when she's just kind of like looking down and mumbling, and you almost feel bad for her. That's because before then she's kind of like portrayed in such a strange light that you're scared of her. You think she's going to be like the horror of the movie, which is I guess probably the biggest red herring. But great performance there. I mean, gosh, they're all just so darn good, especially Toni Collette though. Like, definitely the lead, the best. Okay, I'll stop now.
And oh man, Millie Shapiro, she gets treated like dirt a lot early on, and by all three, I noticed all 3 characters have a distinct moment where they treat her like absolute dirt. So Annie, Steve, and Alex also all like just completely stomp her. Like she's like the most depressing thing about this film, honestly. And then she just has like the worst demise. So like I said, tonally works great, and it's like it's just another healthy mix of disturbing things, and you have like the normalcy of Steve, and it's just a wonderful family. It's great. But go ahead, Zach.
Yeah, I mean, I don't have a ton to add to that. I think the performances are great. Toni Collette is incredible. I think she was absolutely snubbed at the Academy Awards that year. I think everybody's supported by a great script, though, I would say. I think the dialogue in this is particularly great because they're willing to let people sound like actual people. A lot of the time, script writers make the mistake of they read their dialogue or they're writing on a page and they think, that doesn't read right. And in reality, people don't speak how they would read. People flub lines, they trip over things, they use the wrong words in certain places. One of the most, I think, identifiable examples is in the dinner scene, where Annie is yelling at Peter, and she says, and all I get is that face on your face. And if somebody read that in a script, a lot of people would say, face on your face, I gotta look on your face, I gotta change one of those. But it's perfect, because people do that when they're angry and they're upset, and it feels so normal when she delivers it. But I also want to shout out Millie Shapiro. I do think her role does, not her performance, but her role does kind of suffer a little bit if you're familiar with this movie's influences. If you've seen Don't Look Now by Nicholas Roeg, which I don't think either of you have, but there's a character in that film that Charlie is very clearly modeled off of. So if you've seen that film, I think it really does affect your interpretation of this character. So I was never really frightened of her. I was kind of more like sad and fearful for her and worried about her.
Yeah.
But I think she delivers a great performance, because in reality, that actress is like a TikTok e-girl, and like she looks totally different and has a totally different demeanor.
Millie Shapiro, hit us up.
And she mentions this movie all the time on her TikTok and seems to have a great sense of humor about it. But like, she's great in this. She portrays herself entirely differently to what she actually seems to be. So great child actor. I think like the 2010s, 2020s, we've been having a real resurgence in quality child actors, which we were kind of missing in the 2000s.
Yeah. Yeah, I think you guys pretty much hit the nail on the head. I mean, Toni Collette's like second to none. Her reactions to everything are so authentic, and she has we talk about Kirk Douglas's face, right? But nobody has a face like Toni Collette when she's freaked out. She looks disturbing. She looks like she's messed up, right? And she's messed up in 15 different ways. She's not just messed up like she's crazy. She's messed up like she's seen some crap. And that is like so hard to pull off. Like, you can have dead stares and be frightened, but like when she's seeing all the ants all over Peter, and her eyes are uneven, and she's like completely like beyond shocked, like just nothing, like the average human could not pull off that reaction. And then she has a totally what you'd expect, like if you could even expect it, her reaction to Charlie dying and retching on the floor and things like that, and just like nothing I would ever change. Her instant changes of reaction when she's in the dream, when she's like, I didn't want to be your mother or something, and she like didn't mean to say it, and that's like perfectly cut, and the score like is perfectly cut with it. And when she gets during the seance, she gets possessed, and then at the very end she gets possessed. All three of those wonderfully pulled off. And then Gabriel Byrne is like, he's a very worried dude, and he pulls that off great. And Alex is very empty, and appropriately empty, because he's literally like empty in the eyes of the satanic cult, because he's ripe for the taken for King Payman. And I think that's great. He's just like a regular teenager early on, but right after that kid dies, it's like everything's over for him. Like, the possession stuff's already starting.
Yeah, I just wanted to mention like that idea of regular teenagers. I think this movie portrays teenagers really, really well.
The bleacher scene.
The bleacher scene.
But go ahead.
I think the bleacher scene, that's accurate. And then I also love, there's a scene early on, other people have mentioned this as well in reviews, but there's a scene early on where Alex is in like a social studies class, and he's zoned out, and he's looking at the girl in front of him. Specifically, he's looking at her butt. And we get a shot of it. And it's literally, it's just a butt in the chair. Like, the movie makes no attempt to like sexualize her or present it in like a radical hot teen way. It's just he's looking at her butt, and it's like portrayed so normal and presentational.
Spin team,
like I love that.
Away.
I love that it doesn't
it's
like
fine.
It doesn't. This is a point, Christian. Just because you're uncomfortable with sexuality doesn't mean we shouldn't talk about it.
Oh my god!
And the movie makes no attempt to like glamorize high school. Even the party that they're at feels like it kind of sucks. And there's just tons of people bustling around, not really knowing what to do, and the music is too loud, and somebody's making a cake for some reason. And I love that it has those just... It feels like actual high school, I think, which is that it's just depressing, and the ceilings are weirdly high, and everybody's tired and doesn't want to talk to each other.
I think it's impossible to depict high school accurately, and I feel like Zach's cynical view of that time and of those people, it partially affects that. But I will say that is by design. This world is not necessarily supposed to feel like it's grounded, because we're following this family, and we're following the cult influence and the mental aspects of it. And I feel like that kind of helps, having these crappy parties and having these do-nothing teenagers. And there are do-nothing teenagers, and I think the dialogue's perfectly acceptable, and I think it's believable enough. But it's really the main focus is the situations, and there's not a lot of time spent on those extras anyway. So I think just having that extra interest, he's not just into weed, but he also has interest in girls, obviously.
And
so
music.
I think
he's got the keyboard in his room. He plays the guitar.
Right. Yeah, he has a musical interest, so they try to make it, but none of that's like the focus. It's all background meat for the taking for King Payment. But anyway, that's all I have. What were you gonna say?
I have to cut in here. I have no issue with
Okay.
the classroom scenes, but I don't think any of the high schoolers come across as especially believable. I don't like the bleacher scene at all. I don't think that discussion made sense to me, or it didn't feel natural. The party scenes are fine, I guess, and I guess the only other named character is the one girl that he's interested in, but it's got the same issue as pretty much every other movie, I guess, which is the high schoolers are all college aged or look like they're in their early 20s, which is a quibble, but
I know you don't like Spider-Man, all right? I'm just kidding.
No, it's
Tobey Maguire looks too old.
It's a little thing, but I do find it somewhat distracting. And gosh, what else was I gonna say? I mean, the instruments are just used as props in his room. I don't think he's.
Yeah, but they flesh out the setting.
Yeah,
I
Nothing.
guess, but
They're there for a reason. They didn't just say
finish?
we got a blank patch of wall.
Go ahead. Christian.
Are they though? I mean, yeah, they fill in the setting, but I don't think he's really an especially complicated character. I mean, Mitchell, you said it yourself. The only two things we really know he's interested in are weed and girls. Is that really an especially dynamic high school boy? I don't think so. But at the same time, I don't think that's a problem. Yeah, no. I'm just clarifying. I would not heap praise on the way high school is presented here. I think it's pretty stereotypical and at some points lacking. But that's a minor quibble, and is often a thing in pretty much any other movie. So it is what it is.
Okay. I would say that it grounds you and sets as good setup for the crazy. Oh, gotta censor that too. Crazy stuff that happens afterwards. But I mean, yeah, we're talking about minor stuff here. We're talking about freaking props. Guys,
it all matters.
Go see this movie. It all matters. All right, whatever. I love Peter's mole. Okay, I think it adds character. But anyway, Austin Powers reference. But anyway, give your final thoughts, guys. What do you think? Recommend or not recommend?
I'm never going to watch this again unless I have the opportunity to force someone through what I was put through. So, I definitely do not think this is for Nana. I think you would be pretty crazy to say it is, but it's obviously
unless your Nana's name's Ellen.
Or maybe especially not if your Nana's name is Ellen.
Oh wait.
Well, I really like this film.
I like it too, Zach. I gave it a 4. Leave me alone.
Sure, but I personally do enjoy it. I watch this movie and I have fun, and I chuckle at satisfying moments and things that I think are well done. I really need to own it. I've seen it enough that I should own it at this point. But yeah, maybe that's just because I'm a really big fan of horror, and it's the genre that kind of got me into film in the first place. But I think it's amazing. It's really well made. I don't think I love it as much as some other people. I think Ari Aster and Robert Eggers, who directed The Witch and The Lighthouse, kind of came out of A24 at the same time. And personally, I think I kind of prefer Eggers' style. But they're kind of the two racehorses at the front of the A24 high concept horror movement that's going on right now. So I'm interested to see how both their careers progress. But Aster particularly, since we're talking about him in this episode.
Yep. Me too. Not a lot I can add. We talked about pretty much everything. I recommend this movie. It's a psychological horror, and it's one of the better ones I've seen in the past decade. I think, honestly, it's probably the best horror film I've seen in the past decade. I don't know what that means to Zach. He's like, oh, you haven't seen this, this, and this? No, I haven't, Zach. But I don't know. But this is a very high profile, or brought to high profile horror film, and I highly recommend it for anybody who's a fan, or force it to somebody who doesn't want to see it at all because they don't like horror movies. Ruin their life. It's a grand old time.
Oh,
especially if they're like your partner or something, or you're trying to.
Oh, gosh.
But on to Week in Review.
I
What are
will
you saying,
say
Jack?
now that if I had not forced you through John Carpenter's The Thing, you would not have discovered a 5-star movie. So sometimes it's good to force people through movies.
Accept it.
Okay, I mean, yeah, I did thank you for that, Zach. I have no counter argument here, but I would not recommend starting here at all. I
No,
think you got to work your way
Start
up,
wherever.
Start
I think-
wherever your heart takes you.
Yeah,
which
that's
I
a-
doubt is
that's
here,
nice.
but okay.
my heart takes me here all the time.
It is what it is. All right, we can review.
Oh gosh.
We
All
Okay.
talk
right,
about things
I'm
we've
throwing
seen in the past
throwing
week.
myself into the open because I feel like
Alright, go ahead.
I'm getting smacked all over the place and I'm clearing the air. Oh gosh. Okay. I saw The Green Knight in theaters,
Yeah.
starring Dev Patel and Alicia Vikander among others, and it is, I think, just terrific. I initially gave it a 4.5 and concluded my review with, I want to give this 5 stars so bad. And then I decided, you know what? I'm going to do that. And I gave it 5 stars. And I wrote in my Letterboxd review, Godwin's, as they all pronounce it, his shame clouds everything through the ending in this brilliant adaptation. And gorgeous visuals, constantly captivating, magisterial without being pedantic, and just incredibly well made. There's, I think, like the only complaint anyone could have about this is there's a CGI fox that occasionally doesn't look perfect because it's not, I assume,
Perfect
pacing, like a big budget for that.
$15
sort of
million.
thing. Yeah. So, I mean, given that, it's still incredible. And I would recommend this to anyone who's interested in like medieval stuff or just wants like a different kind of adventure movie where the hero isn't really like an action hero or even a knight as they impress upon in this tale. I was stunned by how strong the performances were in this. I found the ending, oh gosh, it's just, it kind of pulls like a La La Land at one point. I won't say how or why, but I just thought it was awesome. I think everyone should go see this and be open to the idea of a hero being shameful instead of impressionable in an iconic way.
All right. I have my ticket is booked 6:45 p.m. this Tuesday, so I'm looking forward to that one.
Yes.
It's on my pile of watch list films on Letterboxd.
Well, I was going to see Green Knight at South by Southwest 2 years ago, and you beat me to it somehow. Well, immediately after watching Hereditary, I watched a very different kind of horror movie because I watched Wes Craven's The People Under the Stairs, which is actually not that bad. It's pretty good. Wes Craven, for those who aren't aware, is known as kind of a master of horror. He directed A Nightmare on Elm Street, Scream, lots of horror classics. But his entire filmography, it's a little weird. He either made solid, like, entertaining 3 or 4 stars out of 5 movies, or he made the worst garbage you've ever seen in your life. And People Under the Stairs is a 3-star, so it's one of his okay ones. Basically, it takes place in like a neighborhood that's kind of in the middle of being gentrified. There's a big old house that's converted from a funeral parlor, and this very weird couple live in it, and they own a lot of the other houses in the neighborhood. And one day, this group of criminals, including a poor black boy, decide they're going to break into the house and steal a collection of coins from this couple to sell them in order to fund their way out of the neighborhood. But once they get into the house, they find that these people are weirder than they expect and have a gaggle of feral children hidden in their basement. Now, based upon that description, you probably wouldn't think that this movie ends with a New Jack Swing style rap song, and yet it does. It's a weird, goofy movie, and yet I had a lot of fun with it. It's genuinely funny, and yet in other places it's also very tense and very unpleasant and has some really interesting things to say about child abuse, race, discrimination. It's weird. It's weird. Wes Craven writes scripts like that where there's like very goofy stuff in them, but they also have really interesting things to say. So if you're interested in that kind of bizarrely polarizing watch, which you'll come away from and probably wonder whether you actually liked or not, I'm gonna recommend People Under the Stairs. I know that's not gonna be a review for everybody, but I would recommend it. It's fun if nothing else.
Well, you know what else is fun? Rammstein. Rammstein has been one of my favorite bands for quite a while now. And there is a documentary about them that's hailed as like, I think it's their only documentary, Rammstein in America, which talks about the band, which started in East Germany and had their own goings-on before they eventually formed in 1994, and led all the way to their fame up until Madison Square Garden in 2012. So they have really kicked it off. Recently, they released in 2019. They released a new album. Yeah, this is a fantastic documentary. In a lot of ways. I tried not to read too many Letterboxd reviews that were like 5 stars, my favorite band. Oh, this is Crispa's so hot, you know. So there's a couple parts that are a little weird. I don't know if Hannes Rosaker is like, you know, fully familiar with certain aspects of American culture, because it does seem a little you know, a little bit too, you know, foreign influenced. I feel like he doesn't really understand certain things. He kind of gets into politics for some reason at a few points, and the band kind of talks about it a little bit too much. It feels just out of place with everything else that's going on. But regardless, it's a pretty big influence on how the band was functioning anyway, so it has some merit in that respect. There's a couple scenes that are just really weird. There's really good interviews, like I don't know, Marilyn Manson's in there. Kiefer Sutherland is in there, like some very, you know, medium profile, you know, musicians that talk about, you had no idea that they even knew about the band. They're like, yeah, Rammstein's like a great, you know, they're an awesome metal band. Their live shows are insane. Like they're total, like the best pyrotechnics of any musical show, like ever. So I have high praise for it. I've shown it to 2 different people now, and they both became fans of the band because of it. So I think that speaks pretty high praise about, you know, how influential the history is and stuff, and it really emphasizes the different personalities of the band members as well. I know Crispa mentions like he plays like does a few push-ups and then he feels his heartbeat and he's able to play the guitar at the same beat as his heart, which doesn't make any sense, but to him it does. So I'm happy for him. But I recommend the documentary if you're at all interested in the band or in the music or anything. I think it's a pretty good watch. So yeah, I guess I hear the bus coming in the distance.
The Hong Kong. Closing show of the tour. We're getting out the guitars. Fall Out Boy canceled on us, so it's just us.
Who's the opening act?
Weezer.
Weezer. Machine Gun Kelly.
Hey, you leave MGK alone.
I don't know where this bit is going. I just
go
trying
on
to make
Christian,
it fun. This is our
tell
last
us about
one.
Your tour.
Our final stop. So after Hereditary sufficiently scarred me, I was sitting alone in my basement with my dog to console me, and I was like, you know what? I think the Magical Cinema Tour should have a final hurrah of hurrahness. And so
Hoorah!
So you invited Woody Allen.
What I did is I went to my Letterboxd watch list, and I ordered it by shortest runtime first. And I scrolled until I found a film that I decided was classic and wouldn't keep me up too late. And so I stumbled upon Annie Hall, 1977, 93 minutes, so I got to bed. And it's directed by and starring Woody Allen, and also starring Diane Keaton as the titular character. And a brief sidebar, Zach, I want you to explain to our audience members why you didn't like Kicking and Screaming and the characters in Kicking and Screaming.
Oh, sure. Well, I did not enjoy Kicking and Screaming, which is a Noah Baumbach film, because we spend time with this group of college graduates throughout the entire movie that the film seems to think are very interesting and witty and fun, and they certainly think they're interesting and witty and fun. But I personally found them incredibly and absolutely insufferably annoying, and described them both in the comments of my review and in later conversations as exactly the kind of people I leave a room to avoid.
Yeah. So everything you just said is kind of how I felt about Woody Allen's character, Alvy Singer. I find him charming for maybe like he's clearly witty and intelligent for like the first 20 minutes, and then I was just like, oh my gosh, this dude just doesn't shut up. And everything is framed through his perspective, which is, totally intentional. And at some point he knows he's self-effacing, but like all of his pretension is like portrayed through this lens of self-deprecation to sort of like make it okay and make it more palatable, and to make it seem like it's not like he's like just exercising his ego on screen, but he still kind of is. It's just inevitable, and to me, I found that eventually exhausting. But despite that, I gave this movie a 3.5, and I indicated that I liked it on Letterboxd because I did. I think there's some really terrific moments. It's clearly very innovative in the sort of romantic comedy sphere. There's some like fourth wall breaking going on, and some weird techniques with like splicing images and whatever. And Diane Keaton is just so erudite and endearing as Annie Hall, and you can see at different points how Alvy is like controlling and how she grows past him, and even if like me you grow sick of Alvy, you still sympathize with him through the end because it is a good film. And I would recommend this to pretty much anyone that's open to romantic comedies. I didn't really think about Woody Allen as a person while I was watching this, and I don't recommend you do either. I try to separate the art from the artist, as we always do here. But I think it's a really good film and a product of more people than just him. So, if you're open to the genre and open to giving it a try, I would recommend it.
Very well. Well, that leads us on to the rundown.
Oh, yeah. Oh,
Survey is saying nothing, Zach. Survey is saying nothing.
So after I watched this, I was like, oh, I have to write a rundown for this. How am I going to do that? And then Mitchell delivered on a big, Mitchell did a very good job, and I did some things, but really Mitchell carried this, is what I'm saying. It's going to be fun.
Did a great job too. Shut up. All right.
No,
let's do it.
I'm going to be self-deprecating like Alvy because I'm witty and quirky. Okay.
You sound like more like Adam Sandler, but...
What are you doing? I hate myself.
Because I'm witty and
I
quirky.
didn't resurface anything.
Yeah, because I'm witty, I'm quirky.
Okay,
I'm in here with the rundown.
Jesus. Okay. I'm ready, Christian. I'm ready. Survey should have said something. Let's just start this already.
I hear Billy Madison in the distance. Okay, no, sorry. Mitchell.
Lord.
Ready? Okay.
I told you, yes.
You guys know what this is by now. Okay, 3, 2, 1, go.
Pneumonia.
3 out of 5.
Chocolate cake.
4 out of 5.
Those nuts.
3 out of 5.
Model houses.
4 out of 5.
Coming home after getting in trouble at school.
4 out of 5.
Toni Collette as Annie Graham.
Oh, 4 out of 5.
Joan being the biggest prankster of the 21st century.
3 out of 5.
Dead Bird Head.
3 out of 5.
Classroom discussion pertaining to plot cliche.
3 out of 5.
Seances.
4 out of 5.
Grandma feeding the baby.
4 out of 5.
Zach Garrigus as King Payman.
4 out of 5.
Vibing in the corner.
4 out of 5.
A fandom taking it too far.
3 out of 5.
Bro dude smokers under the bleachers.
2 out of 5.
Reading an unknown language out loud.
3 out of 5.
Cookie pocket is family dinner argument.
4 out of 5.
Teen attempts teen things.
4 out of 5.
Bringing your thing to the party as requested.
3 out of 5.
Dollhouse funeral.
4 out of 5.
Dollhouse obsession.
Yep.
4 out of 5.
Dollhouse obsession.
Sus funeral.
3
Yeah.
out of 5.
Yes, we got it in.
Recovered.
Oh, I ruined it.
Finally, Christian messed up on the rundown.
And then I cursed again.
You have already given me like
Satan.
3 high schools in this episode. What are we
Don't
doing?
worry about it, Zach.
I know,
Don't
Zach.
worry about
I'm
it.
running off the rails. It's because you attacked me. That's why.
Listeners, Zach goes to great lengths to make this enjoyable for you, so applaud to Zach.
Yes.
And also, it's all his fault. All right.
Dance, monkey dance.
Guys,
I
this
don't
is
get no
our last
respect.
episode.
I
This
don't
is our
respect
last. This is our last episode of the season. So we have to, we have to talk about our stuff.
We do.
So we're gonna do it.
Okay.
This is gonna be a very long episode, but we have to do what we have to do for the good of the cause. So, to start off our discussion, Christian's lineup, favorite and least favorite.
Oh no, I didn't organize these. Okay, all right. Let me.
Don't worry about it, Zach. Don't worry about it.
Hey,
Christian,
go with rundown mentality. Whatever pops into your head. I guess I can.
Yeah,
go
whatever
first.
pops in your head. Go. Yeah. All three of
mean,
us can talk. We can talk about our own too. That's what
I very consciously chose a ton of my favorites for this season. Maybe that was not the smartest plan, but like, gosh, like almost everything I chose: Scott Pilgrim, Marriage Story, La La Land, Beautiful Girls, Casablanca, Batman, Phantasm. Those are all some of my favorite movies of all time, bar very few. But I will say my absolute favorite is La La Land. I thought Umbrellas of Cherbourg might have had it on the ropes, but I think La La Land is literally my favorite film of all time, and it will be hard pressed to be defeated. But I think my least favorite pick is a harder question. But okay, you know what? I'm actually going to answer this question differently. I think my favorite pick to discuss was Paul Blart Mall Cop. I stand by that fully. I think it was a great episode, and I'm very glad that I forced Zach through that because it was highly enjoyable for me. My least favorite pick for Cookie Pocket purposes, definitely West Side Story. I was a little disappointed by how that was received by you guys. I appreciated the 3.5s as an acknowledgement of its quality, even though it didn't seem to enthrall either of you at all whatsoever, which is, kind of a bummer, but that's the nature of the cookies and the pockets.
Yep. Right, Zach, are you ready?
Yeah, I guess so. If we're specifically talking about Christian's lineup here, I would say that first half of the season, Christian was not exactly punching all that well. A lot of his films, I think, were very much kind of his own interests and didn't necessarily appeal to me to a great deal. But last half of the season, he started to get into some stuff that I think did kind of start to appeal to me a little bit more, starting with kind of Uncut Gems. Uncut Gems, I think, was a great choice. It was also our first guested episode. Shout out again to Nick Houghton. Thank you for appearing on the show. And then I also think that Beautiful Girls was quite resonant, and La La Land was a great choice as well. I think, if I'm going to talk about favorite, I might also go for La La Land. I think it's a really effective film. I think it holds a lot of the same nostalgia for me as it does for Christian. We saw it in the same situation, and I'll agree that it's a really well-made film, even if I do have some slight niggles with it that Christian does not have.
I was about to come at you for saying I chose films I liked because that's all you do, Zach, but you landed with La La Land, so I'll let you go.
If I had to choose least favorite Christian choice,
oh Lord,
I'm gonna flip the script here.
He's coming back. He's coming back.
It's Paul Blart Mall Cop. This was one of the worst things I have ever seen. It's not the worst. I've seen much worse.
Okay, good.
The fact that I had to watch this and then talk about it for an hour on this show made me feel so dirty. I took like 3 showers after I watched this movie and I still did not feel clean. And this movie took something from me that I will never get back. And for that, I will never forgive you, Christian, or Kevin James.
My work is done.
Oh, my Lord. All right. My favorite would probably be Empire Strikes Back, but we're having the same Star Wars syndrome we had last season. We faithfully watched or listened to the last finale recently. But I am very torn. I think Christian had some pretty darn good picks and ones that were pretty personalized, but I would say Casablanca. I mean, I think that's pretty much right up my alley. There's really second to none when it comes to that type of movie. It came out at pretty much the peak of Hollywood stardom, and when Hollywood was pretty epic. I think people were like, yeah, Hollywood's epic, we can go to that, and nobody ever had any reason to believe it was ever going to be any worse than it was. But anyway, sorry, Zach, you're making a face at me. But yes, fantastic performances. It really just, there's nothing I can say that hasn't already been said. So Casablanca, my favorite. My least favorite, I was kind of torn. I really liked Batman, right? And it was out of left field, and I appreciated it as an animated feature. It didn't really speak to me that much, but nothing Nothing hurts me more than impassioned, romanticized musicals. And I don't know, man.
Oh my gosh. Worse
I
than
don't know,
Marriage
man.
Story, Mitchell?
I'm just kidding. It was Marriage Story.
Okay.
Got you. You thought I was going to put West Side Story or La La Land on there.
Oh,
Nope.
okay.
That was a red herring. I learned that from Ari Aster. But Marriage Story is a great film, okay? It's a great film. Adam Driver and ScarJo are great in it, okay? I appreciated a lot of bold attempts and a lot of the very successful attempts to break the barriers of what could have been like a hopeless romantic cliche thing. And it completely blew that out of the water, and I appreciate it for that. I'm not a fan of the aesthetic. I'm not generally a fan of the premise at all. I gained virtually nothing from it, but I acknowledge it's a good piece of work of art. So it's my least favorite, but I acknowledge that it's good. So that's all I'm gonna say. That's all you get. So on to Zach's lineup, favorites and least favorites.
I mean, I guess I could go first, considering that Christian went first for his lineup.
Yeah.
I think I enjoyed all the discussions we had about my movies this season, just because I like talking about movies, and I always make sure to pick films that I think I'm going to enjoy talking about with you guys. If I had to pick a favorite, I would say... I mean, I really love talking about Cool Hand Luke with you guys, but I do think that talking about Nosferatu was a pretty cool experience, since you guys seemed to genuinely get something out of it that I wasn't necessarily expecting, considering that it's basically a century old and silent, and season 1, you guys, and maybe particularly Christian, would have maybe gone, I'm not interested, and it would have been a difficult conversation.
I gave Phantom Carriage a 3.
That was not the case this season, though, so I'm really glad that we were able to talk about that. I think maybe my least favorite discussion we had, and I think part of this is my own fault, was Suspiria, and I think Suspiria is a great film, and I did enjoy talking about it, but I think I'm partially to blame here in that I think I made too big of a deal of the fact that it was Italian going in. It's been established that Christian and I have this Italian film rivalry, and I think that it's been established to the point that it's basically a bit now. And I think if I hadn't really addressed that and had just kind of introduced it as a film, I think perhaps Christian would have been a little more open to discussion on it.
I'm forcefully pushing back on that.
He's going to stonewall that, of course, but we'll see. I mean, I have other Italian films in the booking for later seasons, but I'm hoping if I make less of a deal of them, hopefully we can have more interesting discussion. And that's not to say that that wasn't an interesting discussion. I just think it was, Christian was kind of silent and resentfully staring at me throughout the entirety of it, and I think perhaps that won't happen if I'm a little less emphatic about those kind of things in future seasons.
Zach, as always, I gave Suspiria my best try in the hopes that I would enjoy it, and I think I was far more open to Suspiria than you were to Paul Blart, and I don't think it's close, but alas, that is behind us now. Despite all that, I actually don't think Suspiria was my... I guess maybe it was my least favorite discussion, but at least we could be like, I do like when we can be opinionated and fight each other because it's fun and it means we're being honest. And I mean, I like roasting Zach, sure, but on a more serious note, like to me, that if we're disagreeing, it means we're engaging with something and we're being honest about our opinions, and we're doing something more than just agreeing with each other all the time. So that can be productive. I guess the ninth configuration just didn't really settle with me, I guess. I don't even think it's that bad. It's just one of those that just didn't, sometimes it's no fault of the film or the viewer. It just doesn't really make a connection, and I think that was the case for that. Maybe if I revisit it again, I'll like it more. But I think my favorite to watch is either Edward Scissorhands or the Curse of Frankenstein. But I'm going to go with The Curse of Frankenstein because I think it's the only horror movie ever that I've liked more than both of you. So I'm going to hold that Medal of Honor close to my chest and cherish it.
All right. I would mostly agree with Zach's assessment for Suspiria as my least favorite of Zach's, but I'd say we would be remiss not to mention, I don't even know how that goes, Don Quixote. Yeah. Don Quixote was just so disappointing.
Yeah.
That's really the biggest thing. We had a great
Definitely.
discussion on it, but it was just such a disappointment, especially coming relatively hot on the heels of Monty Python. And I think that was, just very, very sad and for our old boy Terry Gilliam. But that's the only reason why I would say that was my least favorite. My favorite is Edward Scissorhands is pretty close, but I might have to agree with Zach on this one too. Nosferatu was a pretty, unexpectedly, even though I was expecting I was going to like it, I wasn't expecting it to like it nearly as much. The universality of it and like how timeless it really is just like, it's total, like I said in my review, lightning in a bottle. Like, there's nothing like it. And I would totally watch it again. I'd watch it a couple times in a row. Like, has that much value to me. And I appreciated it so much for what it was. And it's a fantastic beginning of all of the crappy renditions of Dracula that would come afterwards. But yeah, on to my lineup. I guess I'll go first. Ooh. But I had a slapping good list here, guys. Come on now. I really enjoyed all of them. I'm actually very close to saying Roger Rabbit was my favorite one. But I had something with Braveheart. I think Braveheart was I was very satisfied that we were so unified on that. And I think I think it's just a really solid war film with a lot of different genres in it. And I think that there's a lot for us to appreciate from different angles, and I thought that was a really good episode and a really good film in general. And my least favorite, geez, man, I don't know. Is it possible to have a least favorite? I mean, I could say Where Eagles Dare because you're all wrong, but
I stood by you for Where Eagles Dare, my friend.
Don't
forget.
Care. You have to fully agree with me or you're wrong.
I did.
I'm just kidding.
Oh gosh.
1917. I think 1917 was it was a pretty obvious one. I think we all kind of, I kind of had a weird perspective about it, and I've had conflicting feelings about it ever since I've seen it a million times. But that was like the most general, like average episode, and that's why I think it's my least favorite. But you guys can go ahead, give your own opinions.
Well, I was going to say Where Eagles Dare was either my favorite or close to it because I remembered it as the two of us dunking on Zach the whole time.
It was. Yeah.
But my highest rated of all your picks was 1917. I gave that a 4.5, and okay. I got a lot out of it. So, but I'll always choose the... Zach, you're irking me today. I don't know what it is, but you are. So I'm going to choose Where Eagles Dare because we dunked on him. Oh, and I guess my least favorite. None of Mitchell's were really... bad, honestly.
Yeah, you bet they weren't bad.
I don't know. I mean, the one I probably had the most issues with was The Mist, but I think that was a great episode with great discussion. So I'm not going to say that.
I don't know.
Kind of
stuck, aren't you?
I am
too
stuck.
Good.
You did too good, Mitchell. I'm not going to say Kindergarten Cop. I really like that too. Gosh.
You say Sound of Music because that was a big that was a cursed episode.
Maybe Sound of Music because it's 3 hours long. But you did a great job, Mitchell.
Thank you.
Well, I'm just going to say that a great job here perhaps should not be evaluated by whether or not you liked the movie, because that's not the point of this podcast.
It's about discussion. Yes, I know. Thank you, Zach.
Yes.
Gosh. Gloves are coming off today, man.
Now, I am tempted to say Roger Rabbit, because I do think that was a great discussion, and we also had our second guest on the show. Shout out to Dylan from Bargain Binge.
Thank you, yeah.
But I think maybe my favorite discussion that was... I'm judging these by discussion rather than the film.
Okay, that's fine.
But I think my favorite discussion that resulted from a film of yours is probably The Mist, because I think that was one of our most heated and somehow also amusing discussions that we've ever had.
Oh, yeah.
It went on for like 30 additional minutes of just me incredulously sniping at Christian, and Christian trying to be reasonable back at me. And then
trying.
Again.
Yeah, that's a real objective presentation.
Please do not
of
start
events,
this now. Guys.
Yeah, it was fun though. It was fun. It was a laugh. If I had to say a least favorite, and I don't even have a great amount of like ill will towards this film, but I think that Kindergarten Cop, it's not a movie I extensively dislike, but I think it's a movie that doesn't really inspire a great deal of opinion. So I don't really know if there's that much to talk about. And we found things to talk about in the episode, and we had a discussion, of course, but I think that Kindergarten Cop is kind of a middle-of-the-road comedy, and it's pretty difficult to talk about a movie that's just kind of like, yeah, it was okay. So I do think it was a little hard to make that film interesting in discussion.
Yeah, I think that's fair. Yeah. Well, this is it, guys.
Wow.
But guess what? We're coming back slamming this time
Yeah.
with probably the greatest rundown that's ever been created on
boy.
planet Earth.
My gosh.
Christian showed this to me. I was like, "There's no way. There's no way." And I looked at it. I was like, "Oh my, high school. This is crazy. This is the high schoolest high school I've ever seen in my high school." And we are going to throw this at Zach. This is the finale rundown. I'm taking from Christian as inspiration. We've kind of mutually agreed on this, but it was Christian that hosted the finale of season 1, so I'm hosting the finale of season 2, and I'd like to carry on the torch. So we are doing a rundown of all the missing, lost in time, lost in 2001: Space Odyssey, freaking rundown pieces, and Christian did a great job stitching them all together. So we're gonna throw them at Zach. We have one caveat. Christian, you can mention the caveat this time.
I'm giving us an extra 40 seconds because this season was longer than season 1, so we're stitching more episodes together than we did last season. And also, this list is just really good, and I really want to have fun with as much as possible. So,
yes.
Yeah.
All right.
I can feel it calling in the air.
Oh, no.
Nah.
oh dear
Oh
God.
Lord.
I can feel it running in the garden.
I am ready, Christian. I am
Zach,
ready. Spaghetti, hot, and
you, Zach.
something else.
I'm gonna get you, Zach. Okay,
Give us the
Mitchell.
numbers, Zach. We'll give you the
3,
names.
Meep. All right.
2, 1, go.
Delaying recording time past Zach's bedtime.
3 out of 5.
Calling the spin team.
3 out of 5.
Nicole likely drinking more than Black Widow.
4 out of 5.
ASMR Zach.
3 out of 5.
Zach Garrigus' Don Quixote.
4 out of 5.
Lieutenants.
4 out of 5.
Being a poor wayfaring stranger.
3 out of 5.
Scarjo hair.
2 out of 5.
Trying to find your mom at the store.
4 out of 5.
Pirates being in this year.
3 out of 5.
Opera.
3 out of 5.
Being in lesbians with someone.
2 out of 5.
Killing with hate instead of guns.
3 out of 5.
Bread making you fat.
4 out of 5.
I'm sorry. Runs out. Music intensifies.
4 out of 5.
Just wanting to cut off her head and take out her heart.
4 out of 5.
Putting the theater money back into theater.
3 out of 5.
There's a plot.
4 out of 5.
Even though I try to be good, I am bad.
3 out of 5.
Tauntauns.
4 out of 5.
Wolves howling for half of a Dracula film.
4 out of 5.
Andrea Beaumont as a Batman love interest.
2 out of 5.
Nipple!
3 out of 5.
Andrea Beaumont as a supervillain.
2 out of 5.
Sacking people for subtitles.
3 out of 5.
Signed Richard M. Nixon.
4 out of 5.
Miss Natural Moonlight Shampoo campaign.
3 out of 5.
Autonomous collectives.
4 out of 5.
Twitter but in real life.
3 out of 5.
Wondering how you got here.
3 out of 5.
Drunkards the citizens of the world.
4 out of 5.
War's not making one great.
4 out of 5.
Everything just explodes.
3 out of 5.
Size mattering not.
3 out of 5.
Door machine broke.
3 out of 5.
Bosk and his Doctor Who outfit.
4 out of 5.
Cable cars.
4 out of 5.
Pink bedazzled cell phone, 1 second.
3 out of 5.
Oh yes! We ended on the cell phone!
Oh.
Yes! Peanut butter
Paul
jelly.
Blart wins the day.
Oh no.
We had quite a few missing.
Hey, Zach.
I'm not gonna mention how many.
Hey, Zach.
That's the nature of the rundown.
Feeling
That was great.
alive.
Guys, this episode is feature length.
That's just fine, Zachary. This was
This-
a magnificent season.
This episode is almost as long as Paul Blart Mall Cop.
Which
Kevin
one would you
James,
rather watch?
I want to
or listen
personally
to?
thank you for bringing this art into the world and for allowing me to
Oh.
discuss it with my friends.
No.
No, go!
Rent.
Spider-Man. We'll never talk about it, but it will leak itself in here.
Yeah.
This has been a fantastic episode, guys, and a fantastic season.
It has.
We significantly improved on the other seasons. We've really come out with our personalities. We brought some really darn good films this time around. We're already talking about a potential next season. Oh my god.
Yes.
Just kidding. There's just gonna be a next season reveal.
Hopefully
and don't worry about it, Zach. Don't look at me like you didn't know this is happening.
Yeah, hopefully
we
see
are
for the
ready.
holidays as well. We'll see if that happens.
Holidays plural. Oh,
Ooh.
exciting.
We'll see. Question mark. We'll release hints at discretion.
Yes.
But
Hopefully.
yep, this has been a great season, and I have nothing else to say other than that this is very fun, and I enjoy doing this with you guys.
Okay, bye.